Okay, folks, welcome to our Analytics Breakthrough webinar series. Google Analytics Breakthrough book recently published, written by team consisting of Ferris, who would normally be on the call today with us, but unfortunately he is traveling, so he will not be able to join us. I'm Eric Fettman, co-author of Google Analytics Breakthrough, analytics trainer and coach at Enor. And we are very, very happy to be joined today by Anas, or Andy, as I know Andy better, Abbar, who's joining us. Are you in Dubai right now, Andy?
Actually, I'm in Amman in our development hub center. I'm here for the week, flying back to Dubai on Thursday.
Okay, very good. Well, I had the pleasure of meeting Andy. I think it's probably going on about 3 years ago at this point. Andy actually spoke at one of the trainings that we conducted in Dubai. And what was so compelling about Andy's story is that often when you're talking about analytics success stories, they are usually pretty gradual. They're usually long-term, long-haul, kind of, you have to say, somewhat painstaking processes. Not to say that it's not worth it, not to say that the gradual improvement isn't a good thing, not to say that you won't get occasional quick wins, but usually it's kind of a slower process. And if we don't do it right, we know if we don't do analytics right, if we don't have a focus on analytics, if we don't have the long-term commitment to improvement, in many cases we just don't end up actually driving the improvement that we want to drive with analytics. The thing that's, I think, so compelling about Andy's story is Andy's the opposite end of that spectrum, and having an immediate, definite day-to-day focus on analytics and really using analytics to drive improvement. And Andy's, if we just pull up the book contribution, notice the page number. This is page 29, so it was really very early in the book where we featured Andy's story and Google Analytics as a growth engine, because we wanted to emphasize early on that if you do have the right mindset, if you do have the commitment to analytics, particularly at the top level where Andy is. So Andy was able to foster a real analytics culture throughout the enterprise, which is also not always the case. Sometimes analytics has to be kind of a bottom-up initiative. That wasn't the case at Howie, as Andy will tell us about more. But in any case, that is why we were very happy to have Andy at the training, have him featured in the book, and have him here on the webinar with us today. So with that, here's Andy's official introduction. Andy, anything that you would like to add in terms of background? We'll look at the book and we'll go through some of the scenarios in the book, but in terms of background, anything else that you can share at this point?
Besides, I had more hair in the picture than I have today, and I think you pretty much covered the background. I look forward to basically sharing with you our story. I'd like to call it a success, but success is relative, and it never stops. So it is always a challenge to keep pace in a market that is difficult, the Middle East, but it's also a way of looking at a challenge and making it an opportunity. And I believe that's what happened in the case of Howie and the story of Laylina, and how analytics gave us an edge over many other publishers in the region.
And Andy, I'm glad you brought up the concept of edge and the concept of really analytics as a competitive advantage. And I think that some organizations do analytics somewhat reactively. When things are going well, when things are profitable and everything, seems to be humming, there tends to be less focus on analytics. And that's a dangerous thing, because when things maybe start getting bumpy, you need to have the mechanisms in place to understand where your success has come from and what factors you need to keep reinforcing to perpetuate that success. If you haven't built that kind of infrastructure when things are going well, if you're trying to do it interactively when the problems have already started, you're behind the game. So I think that's an important point that you bring up about using Analytics, Google Analytics, having an analytics culture in general, using it as an edge and having that in place as an advantage when things are good and when when the market is more challenging.
Right, and I need to add one thing is coming to an organization that was more of a traditional media, meaning that they relied on a magazine or a newspaper where the publication is printed once a month at the end of the month or at the end of the week. You're not an organization that is optimal in understanding data. The fact is your magazine is on the shelf a month after the news or after the coverage of a story or an event. There's really very little that you can do in terms of listening to the audience that are reading or consuming your content. So stepping up into an organization like this, it's not just you're starting from ground zero. You're really starting from under the ground, basically getting people to understand that you're all of a sudden driven by data, you're driven by analysis. You cannot really make decisions based on purely how many copies did you sell at the end of the month. That actually you have to make your data, you need to make your decisions based on a moment in an hour. This is when a spike, or you anticipate a spike because of breaking news. How can you basically tap into your analytics to basically make the biggest bang out of that breaking news? I guess, Eric, I can start talking about the actual Layalina.com.
Right. You know what? Andy, let's first of all, let's invite folks to ask questions. If you do have any questions for Andy, please use the question feature within GoToWebinar to answer those questions, and I will make sure to field those so Andy can respond. And just to come back to our book contribution, we've already talked about a number of things. Andy, could you just go back a little bit, tell us about your involvement with Howie, tell us about the growth of Layalina and how you used Google Analytics and also Google Trends. I think this was the only mention of Google Trends in the book, but how you used Google Trend data, how you used the geo data, which I thought was very compelling. I thought what was especially compelling was using the site search data to actually counter some assumptions, and we all know how dangerous and limiting assumptions can be in many ways. So could you just step back a little bit and tell us a little bit about Howie, the growth of Layalina, and how you used analytics to drive that growth in part? I know you had to do a lot of other things to drive the growth, but how you used analytics as an advantage in the growth.
Absolutely. Some real quick background. I'm more of an enterprise guy. I worked at Microsoft and Yahoo in the States, in Europe, and Southeast Asia. I did move to Dubai to basically manage a product offering from Yahoo. And after 2 years, I saw an opportunity with a traditional media company that in my perspective, I saw them sitting on a mine of data that is amazing, but they really had no way of understanding how to tap into this data. And I thought it was an opportunity for me to jump in and set up Howie.
Andy,
Howie is
traditional media meaning broadcast,
meaning print.
print.
Print,
Okay.
newspapers, magazine, and some radio.
Okay.
Um, Done in a very brick and mortar kind of environment. I recall, in late 2012, walking to Samsung in Dubai with a magazine in hand and saying, I'm going to be building the best digital experience for a lifestyle title in the Middle East.
Okay, so it was an existing lifestyle magazine, and you saw the opportunity to pivot it digitally.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's a successful magazine. It has, about anywhere between 50 to 60,000 circulation on a monthly basis. So I walked into Samsung and I told them, we're going to do something totally different. We're going to understand the audience. We're going to basically create content that is relevant to the audience. And I created these personas. I talked about it, and I left the meeting. And it was time to roll up the sleeves and start building a destination like no others. And it was Layalina.com, a lifestyle celebrity destination. Taking into consideration, I think this is one thing that I mentioned, changing a challenge into an opportunity. The Middle East, with all the sadness of what's happening in the region, was an opportunity for people to speak out, to basically start a two-way conversation. They were tired, and they're still tired, of all the darkness, of all the political situation in the region. So to me, I saw this as an opportunity where, how can I do a destination that will enable more of an infotainment content? And Layalina was my flagship. We focused on obviously three things. One is the user experience. I knew it needed to be an outstanding user experience, easy. And mind you, this was in 2012. Mobile penetration was not that high. So my experience was desktop. The second piece was the actual content. How can I create content that is relevant to the audience? And the Middle East, unlike other regions in the world, we have almost 22 countries. So we're basically covering content for 22 countries. There's different dialects, but different needs. So content meant that I need to be local, but also I need to serve pan-Arab content. The third piece, and mind you, with content, just like any other emerging market, the IP or the copyrights are not always protected. So we knew we couldn't basically bank on content exclusivity and the fact that this is our content, that no one else will copy the content. As a matter of fact, this played in our favor. People were copying our content with the watermarks and putting it on their websites, which basically got us exposure on other portals, and slowly people got to know about us through other websites. The third piece, that was the one that I would say the stealth of Layalina, was our content management system, our CMS. Our CMS was done in-house and really served the editors to basically help them create content, understand analytics, and push the right content by market. So with these things in mind, we basically moved on and said, how can we take on the big players in the region? There were many other, well, I don't want to say many, few lifestyle celebrity destinations in the Middle East. Some are subsidized by governments, so very deep pockets. The one thing that we knew very well is we understood data. So to us, it wasn't about just writing content and putting up on the website. It was really about understanding where users are, and social back then was the biggest ocean of consumers. And my point was, how can I create this funnel between an ocean of social users to come to this small pond called Layalina and basically feed the audience onto Layalina. So we, before getting into the analytics piece, we knew that who our audience is. So we did our homework in terms of building the personas. They were young millennials. They wanted to be seen but not to be seen. There's a
Andy,
conservative.
Andy,
Yes.
how did the personas point is interesting, and I think a lot of us approach personas either formally or informally. What could you tell us a little bit more about your process of building a persona of personas and what the basis was?
Absolutely. So being part of the region, I had a good background on the type of people we want to target. So it's not just a matter of the gender, obviously, but it's also the age, the background in terms of the Arabs or Arabic-speaking communities from Morocco all the way to the Gulf countries, think differently, act differently, level of social conservation is involved. I always like to say some of these influencers or social influencers want to be seen in public, but they want to stay in a VIP situation. So when we understood these kind of personas, we built Layalina as a product where it can serve the content based on the interests of these users. When we started at that point, we didn't have the data from Google or from Layalina, but we made certain sets of assumptions that a young, highly educated, with a good income, what kind of content will she consume? Is she interested in luxury fashion? Is she interested in travel, within the region, travel to Europe, to North America, and so forth? We did these small focus groups where we started identifying the interests of these individuals.
So you actually did it through focus groups, Andy. You actually had people. Were they in? This isn't about Google Analytics directly, but this is it all. For all of us in any form of marketing analytics, we have to bring it back to people. So I don't think I've heard about the focus groups before. Was it actual physical focus groups?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was indeed physical interviews and focus groups. Mind you, we had to start from somewhere. Of course, the interests and the behavior of what we saw from Google Analytics allowed us to further optimize these personas. So our starting point was, yes, definitely a focus group, a physical one-on-one interviews, but it didn't stop there. As a matter of fact, what we realized is that people don't disclose everything that they need to disclose, not because they don't want to, but they don't know what they should disclose. However, their behavior on Google Analytics gave us the better insights on what kind of content they want to consume, what kind of, what time of the day or night they want to consume that kind of content, what kind of medium they want to consume the content on. Is it on a desktop or is it on a mobile? Again, in 2012, it was mainly a desktop platform that we were talking about. Obviously, today it's more than 80% mobile, and that's thanks to Google Analytics that we saw this. And within literally 1 year from launching the product, we switched it all the way to a mobile, I don't want to say mobile first, but a mobile-friendly consumption platform. So yes, this is how we started the personas. The menu items on the website were based on interests of users.
The interest that they expressed in the focus groups initially.
Yes, so
Okay.
we didn't have a heat map, we didn't have a product, so we couldn't tell these are the right menu items or not. So everything we basically put in a set of assumptions. We worked off this set of assumptions and slowly optimized to making it the right product. Um,
Right.
Having said that, we understood that this is not a static story, that you have to basically continuously um, change the product based on the behavior of the user. Based on one thing you mentioned earlier, Eric, is the seasonality of the product. So few things we've learned is that Ramadan is a big time where people consume content because there's very little entertainment. Everyone is at home. And in Ramadan, it's a 30-day month of basically fasting from sunrise to sunset. So what we immediately realized is that we needed to serve content related to what consumers use or consume, be it spiritual content, be it entertainment content, and obviously food. So food was not something that we thought about when we started a fashion website. But again, the persona proved that you can't say, I'm going to serve you one kind of content when you are a persona that is interested in lifestyle, interested in fashion, interested potentially in autos, in food, in beauty, in celebrities, and so forth. So
Andy,
this is really
how did you bring food into the mix? What prompted you to do that?
yeah, so we launched Layalina in November of 2012. Ramadan was in July of 2013. So luckily we had time to prepare for it. We knew it was one of those bigger events, so we had time to prepare for it. The one thing that I should mention is the advantage we had over all other publishers is that we were in tune with our audience. So we were looking at Google Analytics day in, day out. And when we tested content, we immediately saw the kind of impact on this. We did small polls about, what kind of content would you like to see during Ramadan, all right? And it was a quick feedback for us to tell us, it's about food, it's about family, it's about changing of lifestyle. We ran some surveys on the website, and slowly this basically captured enough data for us to make the appropriate decisions, which was, let's create a recipe section on the site. And that recipe section was purely text and some pictures or images of the dishes and so forth. Obviously today, when you ask me this question, I would say it's no longer articles, it's videos.
And
And
did it did
what we
Andy did
saw,
the from survey to when you posted the content, did the analytics, did your Google Analytics validate that people were in fact interested in food?
absolutely. I mean, the answer was on a daily basis we were reaching almost 400,000 visitors on our website, layalina.com. In perspective to the magazine, I said on a monthly basis they would have a circulation of 50 or 60,000 copies. You could imagine in one day we're having 8 times what the magazine was circulating. This told us a few things. One is that we are more in touch with the audience than a traditional media, and that we're able to basically within, I don't want to say within hours, but definitely within a day, we are able to make proper decisions on what we need to do next. So when the surveys came in saying that, for Ramadan, their top interest is family and food, we didn't need to know more than that, frankly, because once we knew this, we knew that, okay, let's now analyze this and talk about what is it that we need to do. So it's obviously, the kind of food you want to eat before you start your fast, what is the nutritional value of that kind of food, what kind of food you should basically breaking your fast with so that you still have energy rest with you, and so forth. This is, it wasn't just a yes or a no question or a survey. It actually started branching out to insights that actually helped us go and position ourselves with clients like P&G, saying, you know what, we are a great reference to your audience in the region. We have, today we almost have 10% of the internet population in the MENA region. So you know what, you better believe in us that we have a great reach or representation of the audience that you're targeting. So yes, we didn't think of the advertisers as our target. Our target was always the personas, the consumer, the audience, but that quickly translated with data to how can I basically present Playarena as a platform for clients to basically advertise with us. The analytics piece, let me jump specifically into the analytics, helped us, identify several critical data points. One was what time we need to basically put the content or freshen up the content on the website. So in the Middle East, and again during Ramadan, it's a different set of patterns. There is almost 4 or 5 hours time difference between Morocco and Dubai. So what time zone do we need to basically optimize for to put content that we want to make sure has the highest reach? Do we do general content? Do we do specific content on every market? So one of the points that was covered in the book was Morocco. Morocco has been always seen as a Franco country, that its French language is spoken more than Arabic. Our data proved us that actually no, Arabic is the top priority, is a top language in Morocco. And it took us one nice test. We basically had a breaking news about a celebrity. She is from like what do you call it, the Idol, the show, similar to the Idol show in the US, called Arab Idol in the Middle East. A young Moroccan singer came out and sang a song, and we covered it. After a few weeks, this individual got married to a very popular Egyptian celebrity. And this is when our traffic just spiked up. We saw that there was interest in Morocco in this celebrity, so we started generating content covering this young lady. Her name is Basma Bousil, and that content proved extremely viral in Morocco. No one was creating this kind of content. No one was looking at that. People were most engaged with albums. They were not as much interested in reading articles. They were more interested in looking at images and albums. In the region, the other publishers were measuring their success in terms of how many articles they wanted to post on their website. We were measuring our success by the number of engaged users with our content. So it was obvious it was albums. It was obvious it was
and by engaged users, what were your parameters for determining
pages per session and time on site? These were two things that were critical to us. Obviously, for obvious reasons, more page views means more advertisement, and that means more time on site, which means a healthier engagement with the audience.
Right, and it sounds like it was. Using some of the tactics in GA can be kind of basic and sophisticated at the same time, but it sounds like even using kind of basic geo-segmentation, isolating Morocco, you were able to get an insight that you would not have gotten if you just looked at your audience in total and seen how is all of this content being consumed all across all segments. By even segmenting geographically, you were able to get an insight that you would not have gotten if you didn't do some fundamental segmentation.
Eric, absolutely, and obviously nowadays other publishers have become more advanced and polished in their thinking, but definitely we were probably the first publisher to look at data as a way to make decisions. So when we saw the spike in Morocco, we went and basically diced all our countries. So we created segments for every country to see what kind of content had the most interest in each market. And slowly we realized how mobile was starting to pick up in an exponential way. So immediately we made sure our product, literally within maybe 6 months from launching, to be responsive, a mobile site. So that really helped us basically making sure that moving away from the big albums, big images, to a more agile, easy to load experience on mobile site. I talk about the success, I'll talk about failures. One of the failures was making a decision to build a mobile app for Layalina. We invested in building an app because the understanding everyone wants to use a mobile app. What we realized after we launched the app, and by the way, Samsung paid for the app, so this was the cherry on top. We didn't have to invest financially in this. Was that we realized people were coming from social to read the article or see the album on our website and leave. They were not really downloading an application, and they had no interest in downloading an application. This basically helped us make a decision saying, you know what, we shouldn't be investing in enhancing the mobile app experience, because when it comes to infotainment, people just want to come and read the news and leave. It's not about schedules, it's not about scores, it's really about being entertained and infotained. So that was a wake-up call for us that we immediately took into action, and we said we will no longer invest in updating the app. We still have it, but that it is really more of a mobile site story than a mobile app discussion.
Okay.
So
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Andy, because I think that's still a question. Do you invest more energy into a mobile-friendly website, web pages, or do you go the app route? So, and I guess you can't. It does come down to if you go just based on assumptions, it's not always the right road. But thank you for sharing that. And Andy, we're actually we are a little bit over, but before we conclude, this is super interesting. I'm always super interested to hear about how you've used the data to really drive real meaningful improvement. But if we could, I would just like to make sure that we talk about how you use the site search reports, the search terms reports in relation to World Cup and assumptions, because I really enjoyed hearing this story, and I think it encapsulates some particularly important lessons about assumptions. So could you just share about the World Cup story?
Absolutely. So while this is a more female-oriented website than a male-oriented website, what we realized is that it's a family opportunity. So when we went on Google Trends to see what's happening, it was the World Cup that summer. We immediately saw the interest in soccer teams, results, the countries that are Middle Eastern participating in the World Cup. It was Saudi and Morocco, the two countries, actually three countries, Morocco, Saudi, and Algeria. So we basically took that opportunity to create content related to the World Cup that will attract both the female and male audience in a family. So be it from what snacks to have during the World Cup, to what home decor you could do for your living room, to what kind of how to basically please or maybe abuse your hubby or your husband over the soccer games and so forth.
Okay.
We created a section on which was unheard of, on a female lifestyle website that talked about the World Cup, and advertisers jumped into this because We were, no one else thought about taking this opportunity, and our editorial piece of it was based on what people were searching on Google Trends. That helped us in basically creating, from food, snacks for the World Cup to home decor to what to wear and the lifestyle. All of this really gave us that edge over others in the region and made us more in tune with the audience. So one last thing I want to close up with. Our editors here do not shut down Google Analytics until midnight of the day, because according to our analytics, we decide what kind of content we publish the next morning in our newsletters. We send out 250,000 subscribers to our newsletters 5 days a week, and that content is usually based on the top content from the night before. This means that we are able to re-engage with the audience on the most engaging content. So this was a key learning for us as well.
Okay, so and you brought in Google Trends data as well, which is also a tool that we don't always think of taking advantage of in analytics, but our analytics doesn't only have to be about our own performance. We could use analytics for the broader ecosystem as well and see what's going on in the rest of the world. And Andy, with the World Cup content, like the food content, the World Cup content did prove to be a success with your readership, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Andy, thank you so much. I know there's lots more that we can talk about. I'm always really very inspired to speak with you, but thank you so much for sharing. You really encapsulated a lot of really broad best practices in terms of making sure you bring in qualitative data. Andy talked about focus groups from the beginning. So we're starting with qualitative data, using surveys as additional qualitative data, and then refining assumptions with analytics. So that's one of the holy grails of analytics, is bringing in qualitative data, bringing in quantitative data, and marrying those in a way that really tells the story of what is working and what is not working. So you can do more of what is working and do less of what's not working. And thank you for sharing about the mobile app story as well, Andy. That's very, very interesting and very, very appreciated. So let me just we'll just get back to our deck, and if you want to connect with Andy provided his email and where you could find Andy on Twitter. And if you're interested in, this is the eNOR blog, Analytics Breakthrough Webinar Series. And if you are interested in acquiring the book, if you don't have it already, reading more about Andy's successes with Google Analytics and learning more about GA across the board, gabreakthrough.com. We just saw a nice quote about the book, which we were happy to see. So thank you again to Andy for your contribution, for your appearance on our webinar series today. Hope to see you again at some point when I'm in the region or when you're in the United States. And thank you everyone for logging in today. And if we could all use Google Analytics the way Andy uses Google Analytics, the world would be a better place. So take a lesson from Andy and use data to make decisions, to evaluate your assumptions, and to really drive short-term and long-term improvement. Thanks, everyone. Hope to connect with you again soon. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.